would say the wrong things, that I would somehow jeopardize the investigation. But now that I was sitting across from him, there was so much I wanted to say, and I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how much I should tell him, how much I should leave out. I wondered if I should tell him about my coworker's suicide, about the private investigators who seemed to be following me everywhere, about the rumors Uber was spreading about me and my husband, about how I'd heard that Uber had been destroying documentation in order to conceal its mistreatment of employees. As I sat there, my mind racing, I looked up at him. "Start from the beginning," he said. I wasn't supposed to be a software engineer. I wasn't supposed to be a writer or a whistleblower or even a college graduate for that matter. If, 10 years ago, you had told me that I would someday be all of those things, if you had shown me where life would take me and the very public role I would end up playing in the world, I wouldn't have believed you. I grew up in poverty in rural Arizona and was homeschooled until my early teens. After that, my mother had to return to the workforce and, unlike my younger siblings, I couldn't go to public school, so I was on my own. As a young teenager, I worked below minimum wage jobs during the day and tried to educate myself at night. I feared my life was heading in the same direction as that of many other teenagers living in the rural Southwest, toward drugs, unemployment, and trailer parks. But I refused to accept this as my fate and resolved to fight for a better life. I worked very hard to educate myself and managed to get into college. The struggle to determine my own direction in life didn't end there. When I wanted to study physics at Arizona State University but couldn't because I didn't have the necessary prerequisites, I transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. When I was also prevented from studying science and mathematics at Penn, I once again fought for the education I so desperately wanted and believed I deserved. After my dream of becoming a physicist was derailed by an incident with a male student in my lab, I had to choose an entirely new career, which led me to Silicon Valley. If you're reading this book, you probably know the story of what happened next. I was sexually harassed and bullied at Uber, and I fought until I had exhausted all options except one: to leave the company and go public with my story. Over the years, I've often thought of a quotation from the philosopher Isaiah Berlin's Two Concepts of Liberty. I wish my life and decisions to depend on myself, not on external forces of whatever kind. I wish to be the instrument of my own, not of other men's acts of will. I wish to be a subject, not an object, to be moved by reasons, by conscious purposes, which are my own. This book is the story of my journey to become the subject, not the object, of my own life. To be the person who made things happen, rather than the woman who had things happen to her. Throughout this journey, I have often turned to the words and stories of others for courage and inspiration. Fred Rogers, Rainer Maria Rilke, Fyodor Dostoevsky, Hannah Senesh, and Anne Sexton. The philosophers Aristotle, Plato, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Immanuel Kant, and Martha Nussbaum. Thanks to their words, a lot of hard work, and great determination, along with the support of family and friends, and later, my husband Chad, I made it through to the other side. In sharing the story of my life, I want to offer the same courage and inspiration to others. I hope this book will help those who find themselves in situations like the ones I describe, that it will help them see the steps they can take and the challenges and choices they will face, that it will help them find greater autonomy in their lives and help them discover that they have the power to become the heroes and protagonists of their own stories. In its pages is the kind of story I wish someone had shared with me when I was younger. The story of a young woman who managed to take fate into her own hands and speak up against injustice, even though she was afraid to do so. Chapter 1. Even though I was born in Michigan, I have always considered Arizona my home. When I was 6 years old, my father drove our family from our rental home behind a Kmart parking lot in Traverse City, Michigan, to a little white ranch house in Congress, Arizona. The house was located on a working cattle ranch and had once been a bunkhouse where cowboys slept whenever they drove the cattle south across the Sonoran Desert. At the time, there were 7 of us: me, my father John, my mother Cheryl, my 3 sisters Elizabeth, Martha, and Sarah, and my little brother John. After my 2 youngest brothers, Peter and Paul, were born, we moved a few miles northeast to Yarnell, where my father worked as a preacher. Home to barely 600 people, Yarnell was hidden away at the top of a large desert mountain range known as the Weaver Mountains. The only way to get there was to drive a winding and sometimes dangerous